Hi there. Pivot tables are a powerful tool in Excel for summarizing large volumes of data for further analysis. But if you're an MS365 user, two new functions have recently been pushed to the current channel that replicate much of the functionality of pivot tables. These are the GROUPBY function and the PIVOTBY function. Let's take a look at them and see what they are, how they work, and what benefits they can bring to your workbooks. Here's a small set of personnel data. Let's use the group by function in its simplest format using only its required arguments to create a sum of the salaries by department. Let's pick up the department. We'll include the heading, the values from the salary column, and there are a number of functions that can be used, but let's just go with sum. And you can see there it has brought in a total 129,600. Let's just check that. There we go. 1,290,600. Now we'll bring in the field headers using the first optional field. Because we've included the headers of the columns, we don't need to generate headers. So we'll just use, yes, we have headers and show. So option 3. And there we go. It's showing the department heading and the salary heading. The next optional argument is the field depth. By default, it picks up grand totals, but we can have those at the top. So if we put -1, the total will rise to the top. Put it as 0, the totals are gone, but let's for now just leave grand total on. Next, we have the sort order. And for this, you have to specify the column number. Put a positive number if you want to sort ascending and a negative number if you want to sort descending. So at the moment, by default, it's sorting on the department codes in ascending order, which is a value of 1 for that field. We change that to -1, it sorts the departments in a descending order. If we change that to a 2, it will sort on the salary column in an ascending order. Let's go back for now and just sort on department code ascending. The filter array allows us to exclude data when deriving the function totals. So if we say that the department column equals accounting, it will just bring in a total for accounting. If we change that to not equal to accounting, it brings in everything but accounting. For now, let's bring in all data by just removing the argument. The final optional argument of field relationship only applies when you've got multiple row fields. Let's leave that for now and cover it later. So now I've gone through all the criteria of GROUPBY, let's build some more complex examples using this data. So at the moment, we're just looking at the department. Let's add the location in as well. We take out the row fields data that's in there currently, and we'll change that to be department and location. So now we have a table of data that's sorted by department first, then location second. Now we have two sets of data. Let's add some subtotals. The total depth, we will put grand totals and subtotals, and these appear beneath each combination. So it's a total for accounting, total for business development, and so on. So now we have two variables for the data rows. Let's have a look at this final field relationship criteria on the GROUPBY formula. By default, it assumes that the data has a hierarchy, so it's working from left to right in terms of grouping all the accounting variables together and then the locations. On that basis, it will allow you to do subtotals. But if we change it to a 1, it will treat the data as a table, and it errors because at the moment this formula is saying group by subtotals. Let's change it to a 1 and give us our grand totals, and we get the data back. You can see that it is still grouping by accounting department, business development department, and so on, then within the locations. But this will allow us to sort on column 2 first, for example. So it will group everything in England together, the same for Scotland and the same for Wales. And we can have more than one sort order with group by. So we're sorting column 2, the location, ascending. But let's say we wanted then the departments in descending order. So we just build an array of our sort order. So first of all, we want to sort by location, ascending. Then we'll sort by department, descending. So we have England at the top, being the first alphabetically, but then within England, we have the departments going back to front. Let's change this back to a normal hierarchy and put our subtotals back in. And you'll see that the sort order has put that we will have the departments going back to front, but it is now working through the hierarchy from left to right. So let's take this out completely and sort by column 1 so we get back to our original data. But if we wanted to sort within accounting and then have the locations running in reverse order, we can again build an array. We have the departments, but then we have the locations running in reverse order. If it was decided that the group by summary would be more useful showing the location first and then the department, you could of course change the order of those columns in your table. But if you didn't have the option to do that, what you can do is choose within the formula which order you want the columns to be displayed. Let's just take this sort by order off and sort by the first column. Here are your row fields. Now to change the order of them, just wrap them in a choose columns function. So let's have column 2 first, which is location, and then column 1. You now get your location first and then your department. So you can now have your subtotals by location. Let's now bring in some additional data for analysis by changing the values criteria of the formula. So at the moment, we're just bringing in salary. Let's change that to bring in salary and age columns. That brings the two and displays them side by side. And again, we're using the sum function. The sum of salary is useful, the sum of age, not so much. If we want to keep a sum of salary and have an average of age, as an example, we'd have to use an array to tell it to do so. And you can't just use an array in curly brackets or braces as we did with the sort order. You have to use either the hstack or the vstack functions. Let's go with hstack. So for salary, we want sum, and for age, we want average. So we have the averages for the age and the sum of the salary. And it's even put the header in because we've asked it to display headers. It's telling us at the top what function has been applied to each row. Now with hstack, it displays them with the sum and the average across the top along the columns. If we change that to a vstack, you then get for each breakdown within the variables, the sum and the average underneath each other. Let's change this back to hstack so it displays the data along the columns. In terms of the sort order here, we're still sorting on the location. We can sort on the values here. Let's sort on column 3, which is the sum. But when you have multiple criteria, just be aware that it will sort in the order of the hierarchy. So it's put Wales first in this instance because it's the lowest total for salary, then Scotland, then England. And then within each group, it's sorted the departments by order of increasing salary. Accounting appears first within Wales, IT within Scotland, and in England, accounting appears, but it's further through the hierarchy because it's higher salaries than either human resources or business development. Let's do some filtering of the data. Let's just reset the column sort order. We'll sort by location first, then department. Now, say we just wanted everything where the department was accounting. Here for the filter, let's say that this column equals accounting. We just get accounting for England and Wales. If we wanted only England accounting, we need to change some criteria together. Now we can't use the AND function because it doesn't work with the dynamic arrays. What we can do is wrap that one criteria in parentheses, and then we do a multiply, and we'll do the location equal to England. The formula will pass these two criteria as either true or false. So if it's a true, it's a 1. If it's a false, it's a 0. So both have to be true to return a 1 because we're multiplying them together. So we'll only get the results for accounting and England. So there we go. So it's just the sum of these two records here. Now, if we, instead of wanting where the location was England, let's work on the basis of trying to look for anything that had a salary over 40,000. For the second criteria, the salary greater than or equal to 40,000. So we just get the one person for England because Jonathan Byrne is below 40,000, and then Harley Giles for Wales, 61.8. Let's try and do some filtering dynamically using slicers on the data table. And for this, I'm going to use a solution described by Mark Proctor on his Excel Off the Grid channel. I'll provide a link to that in the video description. So let's start by pulling this formula down below the table because we're going to be filtering some rows out, and just get rid of this static filters. The next thing we'll do is we'll add some slicers to the table. So let's add in department and location. Now these will filter out the table, but at the moment they have no effect on the group by formula. To do the filtering, we're going to leverage the subtotal function, which will by default exclude any hidden rows. And we're going to have to wrap that in a lambda so that the dynamic array formula work correctly. We have to pass this by row, so we'll use the by row function. Do it on the department field to count the text of the visible rows. It doesn't matter which table row you use. Then lambda, we use variable x, and then subtotal, we use the count a function for the text. So we put a 3 in there, and we're counting the discrete rows that are listed by the x variable. So we've closed off all the brackets. And at the moment that makes no difference, but that's because all options are chosen in the slicers. If I start filtering things out, you should see the table change. There we go. We're just looking at the accounting function. I'll bring all that back. There's just England. If I filter that down to corporate for England, we've just got the one row. Where group by will be particularly useful is in dashboarding scenarios, whereas unlike pivot tables, they will dynamically refresh when options are changed or data is added or removed from tables. You're not reliant on users refreshing a pivot table to get the latest view. Here I've taken our previous example with the slicers and just simplified the formula to return just the departments and the salary, and put the salary in descending order. So as I filter by locations, I get all the departments, salaries, sums. And what I can do is use that and wrap that in the take function. So I'm taking that formula as the array, and I just want the top two rows. So that brings in my headings and the department with the largest salary bill, because we'd sorted by salary sum in descending order. So if I change locations, you can see how that updates. So for Wales, the largest salary department is human resources. For Scotland, it's corporate. And for England, it's legal. So it's quite useful for pulling through one particular row of data without having to design helper tables in the back end to produce all the sums and then work out which is the largest value. And of course, group by doesn't allow conditional formatting to present the data in a particular format. You may even want to change the formula to hide the headings, format the headings yourself separately, and then just use the take formula to bring in the first row, which will be the data here. The pivot by function works in a very similar way to group by, but as its name suggests, it allows you to have data in 2 dimensions rather than just the one offered by group by. So you can have columns based on data from your table, not just the rows. I've prepared something similar to the group by example. So we have location, department, sum of salary, average of age, but now we have that data for 2023 and 2024, so you can compare the two side by side. And if I look at the formula options, you can see it's very similar. You just have column fields though and row fields. You bring in your values, you choose your function, you can choose row and column depths, so whether you want subtotals or grand totals, and you can have row sort orders and column sort orders. Again, you have the filtering option. The only different option here is this relative to, and that is when you're using something like percentage of. So you need to tell it what you're doing a percentage of. If I move to this other example here, I've brought in a percentage of salary as a percentage of the grand total. I'll just format that. There are subtotals in here, but if I take out the subtotals, you can see it's doing a percentage of the total. Now, what I have found with this is if I try and do a percentage of, that's relative to 0 at the moment as column totals, but if I change this to grand total, it's crashed my instance of Excel. If anyone can shed any light on why this is crashing, please let me know in the comments. GroupBy and PivotBy are now available on the current channel of Microsoft 365, but I'm running the insider beta channel, so the error I'm getting could be related to that. The biggest problem I see with these new functions at the moment is the sheer complexity of setting up the formula. Anyone who knows their way around a pivot table will be able to do an ad hoc analysis far quicker using a pivot table, so they're not going away anytime soon. Pivot tables also have a large range of formatting options that these dynamic array formula don't have, but some clever use of conditional formatting can go a long way when you're presenting data using things like group by and pivot by. I think where they're going to be particularly useful is picking out particular values or small ranges of values in dashboards where you don't have to worry about a user refreshing pivot tables each time they want to change the criteria that they're looking at. Please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on these and what uses you've found for them. If you found this useful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to get notified of new content. Thanks for watching.